If you grew up working class and you think like the middle class, if you're the woman, too ambitious for your circle, too feminine for your industry, what does this in-between position actually mean? What's the real advantage? That's what Blade does. He can't afford tribal blindness. He sees the vampires for what they are, including their weaknesses, because he's partially made of them. It took me a long time to understand that this was my position, the space between them. Blade isn't a metaphor anymore, it's a scientific result. Have you ever noticed that the communities that look most united on the surface are often the most fractured from within? Divisions within Afro-Caribbean communities, between islands, between generations, between those who stayed and those who left from the mainland. The same fracture on the Portuguese side, between real Portuguese and the descendants of immigrants. There's even research documenting this exact tension. Second-generation Portuguese youth in France caught in a double bind. Be French enough to be accepted here, Portuguese enough to be legitimate there. That's not my interpretation. That's literally my mother's story, written down by researchers who studied hundreds of families like ours. The community projects unity on the outside. From the inside, you see hierarchies, jealousies, code of exclusion that rival anything from the outside world. The belonging they sell you is surface level belonging. It validates you in public, it judges you in private. And before you think this is just a mixed race story, stop. If you grew up working class and you think like the middle class, if you're the woman, too ambitious for your circle, too feminine for your industry, if you're the entrepreneur in a family of employers, you already know this feeling. The territory changes, but the wound doesn't. That's what Blade does. He can't afford tribal blindness. He sees the vampires for what they are, including their weaknesses, because he's partially made of them. There was a specific moment I stopped trying to choose, and I want to tell you what I understood that day. Because it's the same thing that's going to flip your wound into a weapon. But what does this in-between position actually mean? What's the real advantage? Have you ever watched a synapse fire? Two neurons, an electrical signal traveling, and then a gap, a space the signal cannot cross alone. That's where the neurotransmitter comes in. A molecule that lives in that interstitial space that belongs to neither neuron. And that's the only reason the signal reaches the other side. Without it, both neurons are there, charged, ready, and the brain doesn't think. It took me a long time to understand that this was my position. Not one neuron, not the other, the space between them. Martinique on one side, Portugal on the other side. France as no man's land, and me crossing that space since the day I was born. And here's what nobody told me until I went looking. Psychology has been studying this for 30 years. They have stages for it. The first stage is the one most people stay stuck at. You pick a camp, you assimilate, you bury the rest. It's comfortable. It's also where your potential dies. The second stage is the painful one, the crisis, the I don't know who I am phase. Most people run back to stage 1 because stage 2 hurts too much. But they're the third stage. They call it achievement. And the people who made it there, clinically documented, measured, score higher on self-esteem, cognitive flexibility, identity clarity, not in spite of the in-between, because of it. They're the study that followed 400 children of immigrants for 5 years. The higher performers weren't the ones who picked a side. They were the ones who built a third space, a hybrid identity they chose. Blade isn't a metaphor anymore. It's a scientific result. And here's why this matters. Even if you don't care about identity politics, neuroscience tells us that the more a neurotransmitter crosses a synapse, the more efficient the connection becomes, the more irreplaceable it becomes. You can't route, around a synapse. I've crossed hundreds of times between cultures, between social classes, between creative and analytical, between worlds that don't speak to each other, and every crossing made the connection stronger. Not me, the connection. That's why the hybrid who owns their position becomes uncopyable over time. In a world where everyone is screaming for their camp, the person who understands both camps without belonging to either is structurally rare. In content, in negotiation, in business, you read codes the insiders are blind to. They call it third culture. I call it my unfair advantage. The cultures that rejected me need me to talk to each other. I'm the reason they communicate. The problem is that someone convinced me that was something to be ashamed of. Communities don't fight over ideas, they fight for validation. The person who doesn't need that validation, because they were never easily given it, is structurally more free. There are two paths. You keep apologizing for your complexity, you shrink yourself to fit into boxes that never wanted you anyway. You accept that your in-between is your unique point of view, permanent discomfort. That's right, but real power. So that's the only question that matters tonight. What interstitial space are you living in right now? And have you started working it as an advantage, or are you still apologizing for it? Because if you grew up between two worlds, two cultures, two classes, two versions of who you were supposed to be, you're not lost. You're the neurotransmitter, and both sides need you to think. Blade didn't choose to be a hybrid, but he chose what to do with it. Martinique, Portugal, France, I don't fully belong to any of the three, and that's exactly why I can see all three clearly. I break down these psychological traps in every video, so make sure to subscribe and drop a like. Now it's your turn. If you've lived this identity conflict, if being of mixed heritage, or just being the in-between one in your world, has ever felt carrying the weight of two worlds, leave a comment. We're building a community on truth here.
One last thing, then I'm out. Stop trying to fit. That war is over. You lost it the day you were born, and that loss is the best thing that ever happened to you. Because here's what nobody tell the hybrid. Two camps that rejected you are not strong. They're scared. Scared of each other. Scared of looking weak by reaching out first. They have too much ego, too much history, too much need to dominate the other to ever meet in the middle on their own. They need a bridge, and a bridge is not built from one side. A bridge is built from the space between. That's you. That's always been you. You're not the one who didn't belong. You're the one both sides are quietly waiting for, even if they'll never admit it. The hybrid sees what the tribes can't see about themselves. The hybrid carries what the tribes refuse to carry alone. Stop apologizing for the bridge. Start walking on it. Both sides are watching. Midnight out.